11 years. All I've ever wanted in this industry was a chance.
He was hand-picked out of the tag team division and just given an opportunity that he had never earned. Now in that gauntlet match and in the Elimination Chamber match, Kofi Kingston fought valiantly. He fought his heart out. But guess what? Both times Kofi Kingston lost. Kofi Kingston has earned nothing.
Welcome to Last Match Standing, the podcast where we review, relive, and rank the 100 greatest wrestling matches of all time. As always, I'm Spencer.
I'm Big Red Eric Rowan.
And I'm not Jamaican.
No, you are not. That is blatantly true, for sure. Guys, it is episode 38.
Oh, man.
That's right.
Excuse
We
me?
are... Yeah, I know. We are 2 episodes away from the season finale. Season 2, Last Match Standing. We are nearly there. It has just absolutely flown by the second season.
It really has. It hasn't felt like we've been doing this for 2/5 of the amount of show we're going to have. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what's going to make it feel that way. You know what? Episode 50. When we hit episode 50, I'm going to feel like, hang on. Can we go back a few episodes?
Yeah. I think so. And I think the only way where we can really celebrate like an episode 50 is we need to start using, to pick matches, we need to start using the Royal Rumble spinning, like where they pull the numbers with the balls out of the bin. That's what I want.
That is what we should do.
Here on out. It's perfect. But today we are covering a really recent match. Actually, is this the most recent match on our list?
It will be. Yes.
Yeah, it will be.
Yeah. So through 38 episodes, the most recent because it is just over a year ago, April the 7th, 2019, from MetLife Stadium, which is, of course, in East Rutherford, New Jersey.
But somehow it's the shadow of the Empire State Building.
Right. New York, New Jersey. WrestleMania 35. Kofi Kingston versus the new Daniel Bryan.
In celebration of Earth Day.
That's right. Incredible.
The new Daniel
just
Bryan.
Totally incredible. Speaking of the new Daniel Bryan, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure we have a new father to Triple H.
Excuse me?
That's right. We have a new patron.
And he's a quadruple H. He's the dad of Triple H.
As we all know, Triple H, Quadruple H, their genetic offspring, which is not Daniel Bryan, but is now one Mr. Mark Bellegarde, our newest patron. Thank you so much, Mark.
Mark, thanks
for
so
supporting us.
much. Yeah, so great. We appreciate it for sure. So many fun things on Patreon. We just had a trivia episode that we're releasing shortly, WrestleMania 8 for Last Mania Standing, all sorts of fun stuff happening there. So really, really excited, though, to get to today's episode 38, on commentary inside MetLife Stadium. We have Tom Phillips, Byron Saxton, and Corey Graves. And I'm not really sure we'll mention them a whole lot through the remainder of this episode.
I completely tuned them out for most of this match. So
Yeah, I think actually on the rewatch, if you mute the commentary, this match is better.
Oh, it is. It's way better.
Yeah, I think Well, I'll talk about Byron later. But
I actually watched this match with the Spanish commentary, and I enjoyed it a hell of a lot more.
that sounds fantastic. The referee is Jason Ayers. That's the truth. I don't know. That's his name. I mean, I know that's his name, and he's a nice guy, and that's all I got for you.
Do you recognize him? Have we seen him in a referee role before, or were they just like, this should be the most important match on the card? Why don't you just throw that random guy out there?
No, I knew his name when I saw his face. I don't know why. I just was like, that's Ayers.
It's because you're you, and you know every referee to ever put on a zebra stripe shirt.
That is likely true. Did you see the referee don't rush challenge?
Yes.
Did anyone see this?
Yes. It's actually really good.
It's really fantastic, most notably because Little Nate, Charles Robinson, kicks it off, and he's in his Little Nature Boy robe, and it's the best thing
my God.
ever, 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 ever. But before, WrestleMania 35, before we get Kofi Kingston, this story wasn't supposed to happen. Landon, how did we get here?
This story is such a special one. And for the most part, it's still very fresh in our minds because, like we said, it's just a little over a year ago. We were all celebrating Kofi Mania. So what makes this story one of the greatest ever told in WWE? For me, it's a few things. It was something different, right? It was a time where there's nothing but Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins main events and storylines. And we actually see a WrestleMania WWE Championship match between Daniel Bryan, a man who has more respect for the wrestling business than any active superstar on the roster right now, I would say, and Kofi Kingston, who, considering the amount of time that he's been there, should be considered the most overlooked talent in WWE. If you look at amount of time clocked in to overlooked opportunity ratio, I mean, he's the most overlooked guy there.
Oh, yeah. And what blows my mind is further down the line after this, they put him in like a main event feud with Randy Orton over something that happened in 2010. And I'm like, you're just now bringing that up? Like, that should have been a big deal 10 years ago. And, but he's WWE champion now, so let's rewind everybody.
But and another thing about this match is it's another perfect example of organic booking. And we talk about this a lot. Things had to fall perfectly into place for us to get this match on that night. And, I mean, for all intents and purposes, this match should have never happened. Daniel Bryan, 1 year prior to this, was retired with no return expected. And Kofi, buried so deep in the tag team division desolation that half the fan base never even had seen him compete as a singles wrestler.
No, because he's been in a trio since 2013.
Well, he's been in a trio for a while, but even before that, I mean, he was tag team wrestler, tag team wrestler, tag team wrestler. Oh, he had about 5 different partners. But thanks to the unlikely series of events that we'll break down in just a minute, and the overwhelming response from the WWE fans, fantasy booking becomes reality. So let's talk about Kofi Kingston. Kofi Kingston is one of my absolute favorite human beings. Wrestling ability aside, he's just got this contagious, positive, smiling energy. And I think that goes a long way because it translates in the ring. It makes him extremely relatable as a babyface. And in fact, can anyone remember a time where Kofi wasn't a babyface?
No.
I mean, the only time I can think of is when the New Day was supposed to be heel when they first started.
Yeah. And then like a month into it, they're like,
a month.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. That was it. It was 3 months, and it was a failed experiment because everybody loves him. So
Right.
But Kofi's legacy in WWE was already well established before ever making it to the top of the mountain. Kingston holds the singular record for most days spent as a tag team champion.
Good Lord.
He's also obviously known for his innovative Royal Rumble performances. I mean, tell me you don't look forward every single year to see what the hell Kofi Kingston's going to do at the Royal Rumble.
I'd be lying if I said I didn't.
And now he's inspired Naomi to do the same thing in the Women's Rumble.
It's been really fun watching them bounce back and forth like that. It became how you knew Kofi. Outside of the tag division, you just knew that he was going to do something insane at the Rumble, and that was one of the things you started to look for.
It really is, every single year. So Kofi was born in Kumasi, a city in the Ashanti region of Ghana, West Africa. When he was young, his family actually relocated to the Boston area, where Kofi graduated from Boston College and pursued pro wrestling, debuting for Chaotic Wrestling in 2006. That very same year, Kofi would be offered a developmental contract with WWE and started wrestling dark matches for Raw in 2007. Before the year was out,
been that long.
It's crazy to think that it's been that long.
Mm-hmm.
It's like him and The Miz have both been there for the same amount of time.
It's ridiculous.
Consider that.
But before 2007 was out, so this is a year into his wrestling career, vignettes for Kofi Kingston started running on WWE's revival of ECW, with Kofi actually debuting for ECW in January of 2008.
With the worst fake Jamaican gimmick I've ever heard.
SOS, I hear them shout that.
Yeah.
Dude, tell me you didn't love that song.
Oh, song's great. It's just the fucking accent.
He was over. His boom booms, he had great pyro.
He did have great pyro.
But it's just
the boom drop. What's not to love?
The boom drop, dude. But he's just got this unbelievably quick rise to success. I mean, any indie star would be extremely jealous, assuming that WWE is the goal. To think about making it within 2 years of your first match is just unthinkable.
Oh, yeah.
Kofi would quickly be drafted to Raw in 2008 and defeat Chris Jericho for the Intercontinental Championship. So within 2 years of becoming a pro wrestler, Kofi Kingston becomes the Intercontinental Champion of WWE.
I actually have a funny story about Kofi Kingston.
What you got, Paul?
I met him at like a fan meet and greet a few years ago. This would have been like 2009, I think. And
That's
it was
more than
like,
a few years ago, buddy.
Okay, fine. It was 11 years ago. This was like one of those where, like, they're in the local town, so you can go to wherever. I think it was actually like a Best Buy, and you can meet like a few people, and he was there.
Yeah.
And it was so weird because like I met him and I knew who he was since I'd seen a few of his matches. I liked him a lot, and I shook his hand, got an autograph and all that stuff. But when he was talking to me, he just stopped doing the accent. And then he just caught himself and then started doing the accent again. And I was just like, "You're not Jamaican." Like I didn't say that, but I'm then like, "Oh,"
hey,
and I'm like, "Oh
this
yeah,
guy's
that's right."
a phony.
This guy, yeah. I was like, "He's not Jamaican." And then like literally, I think 6 months later on TV, he stops doing the accent. Triple H called him out in fucking middle of a promo. He's like, "I thought you were Jamaican." It's like, I just froze, completely froze. I'm like, oh, I guess he did start doing the accent. I don't know. I just want to tell that story.
Well,
that's really funny.
Here's another
I think,
interesting tidbit. Oh no, go ahead, Spencer.
Well, I was just going to say, when you talked about Kofi Kingston having an Intercontinental Championship match with Chris Jericho 2 years into his in-ring career, so to speak, I think it speaks to just how naturally athletic Kofi Kingston is, and how quickly he was able to take to wrestling because of the athlete that he is, the caliber of competitor that he is.
Oh, he is unbelievably talented in more ways than one. I mean, obviously his athletic ability, but he also had the ability to hold an audience in the palm of his hand. I mean, he's just fun to watch. He's fun to be around. He's going to make you smile every single time he walks out there. He's a really special performer.
I got to say this. Anytime I was watching wrestling, if any members like my family who didn't just didn't care about wrestling, when he was on, everybody wanted to watch his matches because they knew they were going to see something amazing. And I'm just saying, look at this. Look at wrestling bringing the family together, even though it's only for like 15 minutes on every Monday.
Now, here's something interesting that I'd completely forgotten about Kofi's career. At No Way Out, February 15th, 2009.
Oh, yeah.
Kingston was scheduled to compete in the World Heavyweight Championship Elimination Chamber match, but was
I remember this.
yeah, but he was unable to compete because why?
Edge hit him with a concerto and then like just locked himself in the pod.
Exactly.
Real life story. Vince got cold feet and didn't want him in the match.
Don't you find that ironic, considering how this story plays out?
Isn't
Yeah.
that the night where Edge loses the WWE Championship in the first match and then comes back and wins the world title at the end?
Yep. He's the first one eliminated in the SmackDown match, and then he's the last person in the Raw match.
Well, Paul, that kind
I
of makes me not believe your story, because it sounds like it was booked from the beginning for Edge to lose the first one and then win the second one.
I think it's kind of fun that that's the way it worked out. But to your point, Landon, I think you're right. It is a little bit ironic considering the circumstances that we get 10 years later.
It's crazy. And so over the years, Kofi would go on to achieve relative success in the mid-card, winning every belt available and putting on impressive matches with guys like Drew McIntyre, which, by the way, is a feud I would love to see relived right now.
Oh, yeah, now? Hell yeah.
Oh, for sure.
That'd just be great.
But so it was around about 2011 when Kofi Kingston fell into the WWE doesn't know what to do with you, so you're just going to be in a whole bunch of random tag teams that don't really make sense trap.
I think that's an official division.
It is.
Yeah, that's when we got Air Boom.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Evan Bourne, that guy. I mean, I do like Matt Sydal, and I think he's extremely talented. But just whenever you have someone like that in a WWE ring and they just don't know what to do with you, it just puts a bad taste in my mouth. And it's just like, you know what? I don't even want to look at you because you've been ruined.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, Evan Bourne, R-Truth, actually he won gold with both of those guys before losing the tag team championships in 2012 to none other than Daniel Bryan and Kane.
Oh, no.
That's right.
In the
These
tag team
seeds were planted way before.
See,
I
what
can't
you're
even. I'm
doing-
not good enough to make that argument. I'm
You
not.
see,
even gonna-
what you were about to do there is assuming that these writers think that far in advance, which they don't.
Wouldn't that be
I mean,
wild?
They
It would
retroactively make
I
it
mean,
work.
Yeah.
I mean, see no better than, oh man, Eric Rowan's got a big scary monster in a cage, and then a few weeks later, it's a spider. Ooh, scary.
Brilliant. They definitely thought of that from the very beginning.
No, they didn't. They're like, oh, what are we gonna do? We're booked in a corner. So and so writers are afraid of spiders. Make it a spider. Like,
You mean to tell me that when Rowan came out as part of the Wyatt family, they didn't say, we're going to let him ride this Wyatt family train for a little while, but then when it's all said and done, spider.
yeah,
You're telling me that didn't happen? Come on now.
he's gonna change the O in his name to the recycle symbol. He's gonna become a vegan and somehow magically gain 50 pounds, and then spider.
Fantasy booking.
No doubt. No doubt. So after this, Kingston sort of fades into obscurity, right? He's just sort of in the background. Maybe he wins a couple of IC titles here and there, but nothing too substantial until 2014, when Kingston is paired with Big E and Xavier Woods to form the New Day.
I just think it's so funny how the New Day started with fucking Xavier Woods going, no, we will not stand for this anymore. The three of us are going to start our revolution. Like, what's going on here? And like a couple weeks later, we see the vignettes of them preaching. And I'm like, oh no.
Oh, no.
What? And they finally debuted. I'm like, this is never going to work. And then here we are, like, 8 years later, and they're one of the most over acts of all time.
6 years. It's been going on for 6 years.
It feels like longer.
I would like to use this platform and this time to admit my wholehearted crush on Xavier Woods.
Yeah.
I love him deeply, and I just think that the New Day, I just think it's great, and it's not always perfect, and sometimes it's, stale, but they find ways to change things up and make it fun still, and it just should have never worked, and here we are 6 years later, and I think it's really, really neat.
That's a great way to put it. It is a thing that should have never worked, but it's a classic example of if you would have given Xavier Woods the Red Rooster gimmick, this is what you're supposed to do with something like that. This gimmick was never supposed to work, but it did because Big E, Xavier Woods, and Kofi Kingston made it their own. They cranked it up to 11, they leaned in, and they said, you know what? We're just going to try some shit. And
it worked.
It worked.
And there's a lot of wrestling fans out there that like to say they hate the New Day, but secretly they fucking love them.
Yeah.
But they refuse to admit it because, you're not cool if you like them. Like, shut the fuck up. Everybody loves the New Day. If you say you don't like the New Day, you're a liar. You're lying. Or you're not a wrestling fan.
Well, like them or not, within a couple of years, they became one of the most successful tag teams in WWE history. They broke the longest record, the record for longest reigning WWE tag team champions in history, breaking the 331-day previous streak. Oh my God, I can't say this. I'm just going to start over.
Landon, they came out of a giant box of Bootios dressed in Saiyan battle armor. What more do you need?
Thank you. That totally cured my speech.
Xavier played the Green Ranger's flute on Francesca 9000.
Oh my God, that is literally the best thing ever. I'll never forget that because I remember the moment it happened. I screamed at the top of my lungs because I knew what it was the second he started it.
Yeah, let me tell you something. My favorite New Day moment ever. Those are great, but my favorite one, they were having a feud with the Vaudevillains. And they were like, oh, man, the Vaudevillains, they claim to be from this bygone era. Well, you know what? We're going to go back, and we're going to go to that bygone era. So they have a time machine in the middle of the ring.
Oh, my God, I remember this.
And when they step in it, at first, they don't go out far enough back because Kofi sticks his head out, and his old Jamaican music plays. And he's like, oh, it's 2009. Leave me here. It was my best year.
Oh my God.
It's just so good. It's really good. It's really funny.
But as I was trying to say before, they did break the record for longest reigning WWE Tag Team Champions in history, previously set at the 331-day mark by Paul London and Brian Kendrick.
Those two names you're not going to hear anytime soon.
Well, Brian Kendrick is actually still with the company. He wrestles on 205 Live. Believe it or not.
That's right.
Well, you're never going to
and he has been for a couple of years.
You're never going to hear Paul London's name uttered the WWE ever again.
Which is a damn shame.
What happened with Paul London?
He did it to himself.
What happened?
He failed wellness violations, and they told him to go get help. And he said, no, I'm good. I'm going to keep wrestling. And then he failed another wellness violation and said, hey, you really need to go get help. No, I'm good. And then he failed a third wellness violation and got fired. Never come back.
Yeah, really, really talented guy. And you know, it was really fun seeing Paul London's trajectory, right? So he started off as kind of the understudy to Billy Kidman. And you kind of saw that similar style, the shooting star press, the flips, and the drop salts. And then you see Billy Kidman on his way out. Paul London sort of just takes his mantle, and then he takes Spanky under his wing. And so now you have the tag team just sort of switched from Kidman and London to London and Kendrick. And I don't know, I really, really enjoyed their work.
Yeah, I did too. I'm right there with you. They were a good tag team.
And it's impressive that they held the longest reigning tag team champion record for so long. But their record of 331 days was crushed by the New Day, who would far surpass that, overshoot it all the way to 483 days when they eventually dropped the belts to Cesaro and Sheamus.
Oh, it's my favorite tag team of all time.
Cesaro and Sheamus weren't even a tag team whenever they first won the belt.
Right.
No, they were rivals who had become a tag team.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite things that they've ever done.
Hey, wasn't the match where Cesaro's teeth got knocked into his gums?
Ooh.
But
am I thinking of the one where he ran into the crowd and tore up the beach ball?
Oh my God, I love that.
Oh, that was the moment where I'm like, yeah, right there. Make him champion right now. Make him the face of your company.
Well, the crowd was cheering beach ball.
He was the only one who knew how to get the crowd back, because he got the crowd back with that.
Yeah, he did. Oh my God,
He's
Cesaro
like,
deserves all the medals.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so fast forward to January 2019. At a time where WWE champion, the new Daniel Bryan, was having an absolutely outstanding heel champion run. I mean, did you ever think that on WWE television you would have an eco-friendly champion who had a hemp and wood belt?
No, but I fucking love that belt.
Same.
I'll do you one further, Landon. Could you ever imagine that 6 months after he re-debuted, Daniel Bryan, the most beloved superstar ever, would become the most hated superstar ever?
I actually love that. I loved the decision. I thought it was a really, really good call. His wrestling style just sort of suits a heel, and I don't know. I bought it. I thought they did a really good job with it.
When you think you're the one who first told me, oh, did you hear Daniel Bryan's a bad guy now? I'm like, bullshit. They tried that and it failed. And then I watched it. I'm like, you no good motherfucker.
But no, okay, so to me, it is almost like he was a heel and he was kind of dissing the crowd and calling everybody terrible. And I mean, I guess the next step would have been to give him a Dean Ambrose gas mask. But what was
come out, ooh, you stinky, smelly fans.
but
Ew,
essentially
gross.
it sort of was to the point where some of the things he was saying I was agreeing with, and it's just like,
Well, isn't that the best heel though? It's the one where, oh, like, gosh, he's evil, but
He's right.
he's right.
Yeah.
That's why you hate him.
Well, and I don't know if Vince, like, it sort of sounded like this guy is a heel, like, to Vince. These are the kind of people that Vince thinks is annoying, but I don't know. This guy could be my best friend.
Well, it was like whenever CM Punk was turned into Charles Manson because he was just said, hey, maybe you shouldn't, binge drink and do a lot of drugs and smoke. Maybe you should live a healthier lifestyle. Boo! Fuck you! I hate you! You're the devil!
Yeah.
All right, fine. I'm going to become Charles Manson,
Good
and then I'm going to
comparison.
start preaching like a cult leader.
Yeah, good comparison. And that was a really good heel run for CM
I
Punk.
fucking love Straight. I shaved my head in support of the Straight Edge Society.
Shut up.
I was Straight Edge for 4.5 years because of them.
Yeah, I remember
will
that.
tell you-
Actually, I can vouch for that. That's true. I remember that.
CM Punk started the Royal Rumble, and I can't remember what year it was, but it was during the Straight Edge Society run.
It
And
was
I remember
2010.
2010. That's right.
Yeah.
Because I remember him eliminating people, or like asking them before he eliminated them, like, "Hey, I could save you. Like, I don't have to eliminate you. We could join together." And then he'd hit him over there with a microphone or something, and I thought it was the best.
Yeah, there were like 5 people, and then just cut a promo in between.
Yeah.
I'm like, this guy fucking gets wrestling.
Yeah.
Oh, every time they would give him something stupid to do, he would just go, all right, fine. And they wouldn't hit a fucking home run every time.
But the other really great thing about heel Daniel Bryan is it allows him to be more aggressive, right? And so you start seeing those head stomps that were ridiculously brutal. And he brings back cattle mutilation. And it's just all these things where it's just like, God, Daniel Bryan, where was this? Like, so at the Royal Rumble, Daniel Bryan defeats AJ Styles to retain the WWE Championship. And on the following episode of SmackDown, he debuts the leather-bound, he tosses out the leather-bound belt and debuts the hemp and wood belt, which we've already talked about is awesome.
Oh, it's so beautiful. Mm-hmm. I want that belt.
And AJ Styles then rushes the ring, followed by Randy Orton, Samoa Joe, Jeff Hardy, and Mustafa Ali, because reasons. And they all brawl. And so Triple H comes out and announces Daniel Bryan will defend the championship against these 5 guys who just happened to be in the ring at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, okay. So that tells me one thing. If I want to get a WWE Championship match, all I have to do is every time the WWE Champion is in the ring, I just need to get in the ring. And eventually, I'll be the number 1 contender.
This brings me back to us playing general manager mode, where I was trying to book my show like that. But because the game had a ranking system, it doesn't work that way. You can't just book who you want. They have to actually be a contender. And I'm like, wow, this video game from 2007 takes ranking more seriously than a fucking billion-dollar company in the year 2019.
Yeah, well, no, I do remember that, and I remember being disappointed because I was like, but I want Jeff Hardy to challenge for the championship.
Well, Jeff Hardy's on a 5-match losing streak, and he's at the bottom of the barrel right now.
He just lost to Lita last week.
Yeah, you better have him win 5 in a row.
But anyway, so a gauntlet match ensues between the 6 folks scheduled for the Elimination Chamber match. But on the February 12th episode of SmackDown, they had a match to determine who would enter the chamber last. This is that gauntlet match.
Mm-hmm.
But due to a legitimate injury, Ali was pulled from the match and replaced with the New Day's Kofi Kingston.
I will never forget this because it was like the most compelling hour of television I've seen in years.
But guys, I'm just going to pause right here because I have to ask, what if Mustafa Ali would not have been injured? Would this have been Ali Mania at WrestleMania 35?
I think so.
And I don't. I want to because I love Ali and I want this for him. But something tells me that we would have gotten Bryan and Orton or Bryan and whoever.
So there's actually, and I'll get into this in a little bit, but actually the guy who they had lined up for Daniel Bryan was Kevin Owens.
Okay, that makes sense because of what happened in between.
But so that's what they say.
Yeah.
But go with me here, and Spencer, I'll direct this to you since you don't believe it would have been Ali Mania.
Mm-hmm.
In that case, do you think it's possible that this entire story from the beginning was meant for Kofi to replace Ali? Ali was never going to be a part of that match. It was always Kofi.
I don't know because as far as I know, Ali's injury was legitimate. Like it was a concussion, I think, right? Is that true?
I think so. That's what they say. It's very easy for them to just say that's what it was.
Yeah. I think I would go back and say, I would take credit for this storyline, saying that it was, totally the plan all along.
Well, how many things have we willed into being on this podcast?
A few.
Quite a few.
Are you saying we're going to will Ali to get a concussion? We
are going to will this retcon into actual con.
Oh, okay. So are you saying next Friday, Ali is going to be the WWE champion as if he always was, and then
No.
We will the retcon, guys.
We are willing the retcon into Ali wasn't really hurt. They just said, you know what? Let's give Kofi a shot. So, hi, Ali, you're hurt. So take 2 weeks off. Go on vacation. Kofi, you're going to face Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania. But you got to get out there and perform because if you don't, we'll just pull you and put Ali back in.
So go down the rabbit hole with me just a little bit, because if they really didn't plan for this to happen, then they must have just flipped the switch so fast, right? Because immediately they start pulling this program together between Kofi and Bryan, right? At the end of that gauntlet match, it's Kofi and Daniel.
Oh.
Well, no, I'm sorry. The match starts. The match starts with Kofi and Daniel. And not only did Kofi defeat Daniel Bryan, he lasted over an hour defeating Jeff Hardy and Samoa Joe before losing to AJ Styles. Clearly, this was meant to get Kofi over as a legitimate contender. And at Elimination Chamber, Kofi makes it to the final 2 against Daniel Bryan. And, I swear, I would have bet the world that he was going to win it in the Chamber. If you go back and watch that match, it's one of my favorite chamber matches they've ever done.
It's really good.
Based on crowd reaction alone.
They let Kofi and Bryan go when there's just the two of them for almost 10 or 15 minutes by themselves.
You could argue that match is actually better than the one we're reviewing today.
Yeah, for sure.
But what followed this was a 2-month span of will they, won't they, with Kofi being given opportunity after opportunity, but always having them kind of taken away like the carrot on the string.
Well, I'll never forget when they made him do another gauntlet match, which he won. And then it's like, all right, you got a match against Daniel Bryan, but only if you could beat Daniel Bryan right now. And then Daniel Bryan came out and just beat him in like 10 seconds because he was like dead from winning a gauntlet match. And I'm like, oh, fuck you, Vince. And then Daniel Bryan's go, oh, what do you expect from a B-plus player? And I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Fuck
you.
Boy. Let's
You don't
talk
call
about
anybody
it.
that.
Let's
You don't-
talk about it. Hold
You
on
don't call
now.
anybody that.
We just did Daniel Bryan Triple H from WrestleMania 30, and this story obviously compares heavily to that story.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And we can talk about that, in further detail. But for Daniel Bryan, he was saddled with the B-plus player, nickname from Stephanie McMahon in the build-up to WrestleMania 30. So for him to turn around and use it on someone else as a heel, man, that was it.
It's good writing.
It was so good.
It was such a great payoff for the people who have been watching Daniel Bryan's career since WrestleMania 30.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I really, really loved that decision. But yeah, Paul, there's all this back and forth, right? So first Vince says, okay, well, you pinned Daniel in a 6-man tag match, so you know what? You'll get the WWE Championship match at Fastlane. But, well, actually, you know what? Kevin Owens is returning, and he's a much bigger draw than you, so about that.
We're going to have it right now.
But eventually he is added to the Fastlane match against Kevin Owens and Daniel Bryan. And they do such a great bait and switch at Fastlane. Do you remember this? So we get Kofi Kingston's music hits. It's going to be the WWE Championship match. He goes in the ring, and then record scratch, Vince McMahon. Oh, you know what? I know I told you were going to be in the match, but actually, you're going to have a handicap match against the Bar. Good luck, have fun. He loses. And after Fastlane, Mr. McMahon tells Kingston that he would earn a WWE Championship match at WrestleMania if he could beat Sheamus, Cesaro, Rowan, Samoa Joe, and Randy Orton in another gauntlet match.
Oh my God! It's like fuck off.
It's the most infuriating build. And
you know
it's
what, you know what this is? You know what this is? This is the arcade version of Mortal Kombat 2. You gotta go through all of this to face Shao Kahn.
And then get your
when you
ass
face
handed.
Shao Kahn, he beats you in 4 moves.
Yep.
And it's like, what did I do all this for?
Yep. Put in another quarter. But yeah, so after Kingston actually succeeds in beating the 5 guys that McMahon throws at him, he's like, okay, well, you know what? You have to beat Daniel Bryan.
Daniel Bryan beats him. So he's went through 6 fucking people.
It's so bad. But, one aspect of all of this that didn't go unnoticed was Big E and Xavier Woods' support of Kofi from day one. They could have used this opportunity to turn Big E or Xavier or both heel. And I actually was sort of hoping that they did. But they didn't. Instead, they chose to play up an angle that I think makes this story work. Makes it work so well that it deserves a spot in the 100 greatest stories ever told in the wrestling ring.
Well, what I really enjoyed was that the storyline had nothing to do with like the racial overtones, even though that's what everybody thought it was about. It wasn't. But if you look at it from that perspective, then it's an even bigger deal with the state of race relations in this country.
Well, Paul,
I
think there's something to that, though, right? Like, wrestling is at its best when it blurs the lines of reality and fiction. So when Big E takes to Twitter and releases a very controversial video where he says in no uncertain terms, people like us can only get so far. It was just a punch in the gut.
Well,
because
I mean,
there's so many layers to that.
if you want to get really personal, you remember WrestleMania 19, the storyline where we thought Booker T was going to beat Triple H?
Yeah.
Someone like you doesn't get to wear this belt.
Yeah. And it's true that the majority of the roster will only see mid-card success. You know, there are someone like you in, you know, a lot of the mid-carders out there could also agree with that, whatever the color of their skin is. But clearly, there's another meaning here. How many African-American men have won the WWE Championship before Kofi Kingston?
None.
You could argue The Rock is half.
Well, he's Samoan, but...
Well, he's half Samoan, half black.
I don't know. He claims he doesn't see race right now on like Instagram and Twitter, so I feel like he's more Samoan.
Right. So, but yeah, African-American champions, Kofi was the guy. He was the first. And he was actually the first person from Africa to win a WWE championship at all.
Oh, yeah.
So we talked earlier about how much respect we had for Daniel Bryan because of his respect for the wrestling business. Watching Kofi Kingston go through trial after trial after trial, all for the chance to main event WrestleMania, just made you believe how passionate he was about this business and about the WWE Championship.
And most importantly, the fans were behind him the entire time.
Well, when you see somebody that invested, you're invested.
Oh, yeah.
And in what was his last chance, the last chance for Kofi Kingston, McMahon says there's going to be a gauntlet match for Big E and Xavier Woods. And if they're able to defeat 5 other teams, including Daniel Bryan and Rowan, they'll give Kofi Kingston the championship match at WrestleMania. And sure enough,
I remember watching that episode of SmackDown live at your house because we were both like, this is it. They're not going to do it. They're not going to fucking do it. They're not going to let this thing play out.
Paul, it was the SmackDown before WrestleMania.
I know.
So we were all sitting there like legitimately not knowing what the hell was going to happen because there was no official WWE Championship match slated for WrestleMania. But Kofi says in an interview, Daniel Bryan pushed for this to happen because the plans weren't for Kofi to main event WrestleMania. And, you know, at the time, he didn't know who Daniel was supposed to face, but Daniel went in and he went to bat for Kofi. And that was what happened. That's how everything fell into place. So, I mean, just there's speculation that, you know, that we talked about, you know, it was supposed to be Kevin Owens. But when Kevin Owens was asked about this, Owens says, essentially, if you've been paying attention to the crowd response that Kofi was getting at the time, you would have known that this was Kofi's match, regardless of what the original plan was.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I love about the tag team gauntlet match that ultimately earns Kofi the championship match at Mania is as they're going through, they have to beat 4 or 5 teams, whatever it is. One of the teams they have to beat are the Usos. And the Usos forfeit, basically. Right? They say, you know what? We even though like one of the biggest tag team rivalries of the last 10 years has been, you know, we have a New Day Uso match on our list, right? But the Usos realize what's happening and the respect they have for New Day and Kofi Kingston and what they want to see happen. It's just a nice little piece of storytelling that they don't even put up a fight. To try to stop them.
I completely forgotten about that. I just got chills. I mean, seeing things like that happen, seeing teams like the Usos and the New Day have battles against each other, and some of the greatest wrestling matches of all time against each other, and then seeing the respect that those teams have at the end of the day, it just sort of makes moments like these even more special. And so
I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
We get to WrestleMania 35.
We do. Just next door to the Empire State Building, right, Paul? Right next door.
Oh, yeah. We're in the shadow of it. Yeah.
Hey, it's a big shadow, okay?
It's a pretty big shadow. Yeah, shadow that is, let's see, MetLife didn't. Oh, it's actually 42 minutes away without traffic.
What I would like to mention are a couple of things about the entrances prior to the match. Like we said, Jason Ayers is the ref, Tom Phillips, Byron Saxton, and Corey Graves on commentary. But I want to point out a couple of things. One of them is Greg Hamilton is wearing a fantastic suit. Another one of them is that Byron Saxton is not.
It's WrestleMania, baby.
There are two signs in the crowd that I'm going to call the last match standing signs of the night here.
Hey, that's a segment we do every episode.
Every episode, and never goes away. The streak continues. And I would like to say that one of them said, "Tickle me fickle."
Oh.
And the other one is my personal favorite soft drink of all time. It just said, "Pib."
Oh, love Pib.
That's all it said.
That's
so there
Mr.
you go.
Pib to you, sir.
Mr. or Pib Extra?
Pib Extra.
Well, you could always go the Walmart original Dr. Thunder.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, give me some Dr. Thunder, I'm in. But Big E, of course, comes out as part of the New Day with a gift that he pulls out from ringside. So you got Big E and Xavier Woods at ringside, of course, and Rowan comes out with the new Daniel Bryan. And you know what we get here, guys, is a wonderful title graphic.
Oh, yeah, the hemp title graphic.
The hemp title graphic has got the Earth behind it.
I love it.
Celebrating Earth Day. It's beautiful.
Well, okay, so I do have to say, you mentioned these entrances. After all the stunts that New Day has pulled at WrestleMania, this entrance is as plain an entrance as they've ever done.
Well, I think
where are the
reason
pancakes? For that, where are the bootios?
Well, this isn't about the New Day coming out to make everybody smile and laugh. This is about, all right, this is it. This is the most important match in the history of this company. Like, either we are going to set a precedent or we're going to continue the same bullshit we've been doing for the past, 50 years.
Paul, I think you make a really, really good point. But I will counter that and say they brought a box to ringside, and I will bet you anything that everybody in that arena thought it was going to be a WWE Championship belt made out of pancakes.
Yeah, I didn't think that was what's going to be in the box. I thought the box was just going to be like they had got his custom-made version of the belt, and it was going to be like pink and neon.
Well, okay, so less than halfway through a 5.5-hour WrestleMania, we have a WWE Championship match. I can't go any further without acknowledging that. And, I guess you can say, okay, well, this is the end of part one, right? This would be the end of night one if they did a 2-night Mania. But
oh, yeah. Honestly, after watching 36, I'm like, every Mania should be 2 nights from now on.
Oh, no, I think they've officially announced that it will.
Good.
Yeah, because there was an interview. There was an interview recently, and Triple H said it has to be.
Well, we can produce 2.5 to 3 hour shows instead of one 7-hour show. This show with the pre-show is 7 hours long.
It's terrible.
And we're gonna have to review it at some point.
Yep. But boy, do I love starting a match with chain wrestling.
I do too.
It's so good. Listen, this match is 23 minutes long, which after 5.5 hours is a great time. But
well, technically, it's only been 2 hours, so you're in luck.
That's a good point. But you're right. The chain wrestling to start this match is so good. It's just good quality wrestling. And who'd have thought, especially when, kind of Blaine and what you said early on the episode, you talked about, we're kind of in the era of Brock Lesnar's and Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins and Goldberg and those kinds of matches where these title matches are only 5 minutes long and they're finisher. To get some actual wrestling and good wrestling is really fun.
Well, you said that, but the first match of the night, that's what it was. It was 5 minutes of Seth Rollins taking 15 German suplexes, and then he just does 4 curb stomps and wins the belt.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why this feels like a breath of fresh air.
A breath of fresh air. Totally is. But I mean, it shouldn't come as any surprise seeing Daniel Bryan in there. But what I really liked was having Kofi Kingston match him pace for pace. This is not a heavily trained mat wrestler. So seeing him start what has to be considered his career-defining match, showing his versatility and showcasing everything that he's learned over the years, it was just very special.
Oh yeah, like I said, they mat wrestle, and Kofi just stands hold for hold with him, and I'm like, I wasn't expecting that. And then when he starts bringing the high fly stuff, and then he does like the tope of the outside, you're like, all right, this is it. He's got Daniel's number. Daniel's reeling right now, and we're a minute and a half into this. Like, oh shit, here we go.
Yeah, I mean, Kofi does that blind trust dive over the top rope, and let me tell you, you have to trust your opponent to do something like that.
Yeah. And it was at that moment that I saw the green man in the front row, who is, I think, the farthest back we've seen him was around 2012.
Yeah, he was there.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. And I think after that dive, it's the first time we get the cut to the backstage area where you've got
everybody.
Everybody in their
Everybody's watching,
rooting for Kofi.
As you notice that, like Naomi and like R-Truth, they were up front.
Yep. Yeah.
Like, oh look, this all the everybody else is kind of behind them. Like, yes, because they have a bigger interest in this match than the rest of you do.
I mean, I will say, I mean, if we're gonna talk about that just real quickly, they show them probably 4, maybe 5 times throughout the course of the match backstage, everyone cheering them on, and it's just I don't know, it's cheesy, and you could take it out.
They're trying too hard. They're trying too hard, and it doesn't make why. We've never done this before. Is this supposed to hype me for Kofi? Because shouldn't I be sufficiently hyped for Kofi Kingston by this point if WWE, you were doing your job?
Well, like, no, Landon, what they're trying to do is they're trying to make you go, this is a big deal. It's such a big deal that the entire roster is all crowded on this one monitor to watch this match instead of in the training room, like taping up. No. Everybody's glued to that screen. People who go on right after them, they're not getting taped, they're not massaged. They're watching this match. This is the equivalent of like the locker room sellout. Everybody wants to watch it because everybody knows how important it is.
You know how you do that? After the match is over, you have the locker room come on stage and give him a standing O.
If this was the main event, that would have happened. But you can't do that halfway through the show when you're trying to put over how the main event was the triple threat for both women's belts is a big deal. You can't have your cake and eat it. You can't do both.
I don't know. I have to disagree. I think this took away from what should have been an exhilarating match. We get these cuts to backstage, and it just sort of it breaks up the action, and it's extremely unnecessary in my opinion.
For me, like I get it. I don't hate it. It feels overproduced. The match does because of that, and so it does take away a little bit for me, but it doesn't. I see what they're trying to do, and I appreciate it for that. But I would have left it out, but I don't. It doesn't make or break the match necessarily for me either.
But Paul, I do understand your point of they knew what they had. They knew this was going to be one of the most important matches that they've ever put on. So how do we get that across? How do we show that people care?
The entire roster's watching. That's how.
Yeah, this it didn't work for me.
Oh, I'll agree. They cut back to it too many times.
Yeah,
they should have done it one time. The first time they done it, that's great. And then not showed me again until the match is over.
Think about it. We've seen this before. Think about the invasion angle, right? They have the locker room split up, and they're watching the matches the whole time because they're the fate of the company is being played out right in front of them. So we've seen this before where the locker rooms are kind of together and watching everything as a whole. So it's not that it's ridiculous that they did it. It did seem a little out of place, I guess.
Overproduced is a really good word for it, I'd say. But what I did love was Daniel Bryan constantly going back to grappling, right? Trying to show Kofi that you're outmatched here. But every bit of space that Kofi is able to get, he creates separation and picks up the pace, sometimes to a fault, right? I mean, Kofi knows he's going to have to take some risks, And he does, but diving to the outside again and again allows Bryan to sidestep him. And Kofi lands right on the announce table.
Oh, that looked like it rib first.
Yeah.
I'm like,
You know what it reminded me of was Shawn Michaels moonsaulting off the second rope at, I think it was 24 with Ric Flair.
Oh. Yeah,
And
well,
he
I mean,
did
I
the same
swear
thing.
his sternum hit the announce table so hard when they cut to Kofi's abs, you could see one of them is out of place.
I probably was. And
Okay.
then not
Wow,
to be
that
outdone
joke-
by this.
That joke fell flat. He's always had that.
Not to be outdone by that, the first thing that happens to get back in the ring is a fucking Romeo special, the Mexican surfboard. And I'm like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, man, Bryan does a great job targeting the abdomen right after that happens, right? It's so good. And I think it kind of, one of the peaks of him targeting the abdomen was Daniel Bryan hitting that knee from the top rope.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
when he's draped on the, when he's like just hanging all over the ropes, and just bam, that knee. That looks like I thought he did a guillotine leg drop. No, it's like he's just dropped both the knees off of him. I'm like,
Yeah, no,
oh,
look,
God.
we spent a lot of time talking about Kofi Kingston here. Take nothing away from Daniel Bryan's performance. His placement of that knee was nothing less than perfect. I mean, it was just flawless. But Kofi later goes for a running double stomp and is caught mid-air by Daniel Bryan to be put in a Boston Crab. Like, it's just these little minute details that Daniel Bryan can get right every time. It just it makes me not surprised at all that this is the second Daniel Bryan match on the list.
I just want to say, Landon, that speaking of like the small things that Daniel Bryan does to make this that much better, just previous to the double stomp being turned into a Boston Crab, Daniel Bryan has Kofi Kingston in a waist lock, which is basically a bear hug, right? That's what I'm thinking when he gets locked in. Like, oh, here we go, WrestleMania bear hug. Like, I'm ready for it. Like, I know what to expect here. But I was watching it, and man, it was interesting. It was an interesting waist lock, just the way he was positioning himself on Kofi's, ribs, the way he would change his weight, and it just was very purposeful. And it was something that a move that looks like a rest hold for a lot of different guys looked like it was tearing Kofi apart, and I thought it was fascinating.
Oh, definitely.
Oh yeah, well, he didn't just grab a waist lock and sit there for 5 minutes. They were like fighting. Like, I mean, Daniel gets thrown into the turnbuckle to break that, and I'm like, here we go. And then like we just get Bryan's corner drop kicks. Like, just that's it. Daniel's in firm control now.
Daniel did so much throughout this whole storyline to sell Kofi as the next guy, right? I mean, you get the yes chance while Kofi is gaining momentum. And so this is essentially Daniel Bryan using his prestige and his respect that he'd earned from the fans and giving it to Kofi.
Oh, yeah. And we got a move that I really enjoyed. Daniel tries to go for like a super backplex, and Kofi fights him off. And then he does like a frog splash to Daniel's back.
Oh, my first thought was high fly flow.
Me too.
I know, we're a couple of years after that. And I was just like, that, like, there's no way to just take that. Like, someone's landing on your back.
Yeah, you take it. You breathe out.
And I just realized at this point, the crowd has been like behind them since they started, but now we're getting a little ways into this match. This crowd, which they haven't really been given much so far, and they are loving the hell out of this.
Oh yeah.
Like, this is the real main event. It may not go on last, but this is the main event.
Oh, you know what I really loved? Heel Daniel Bryan going for his yes chance, ironically. It's so great.
Funny.
When he's got like that Joker-esque smile on his face going, and everyone's just booing him. Oh, and at this point, he just starts going after Kofi's shoulder. And I'm like, oh, man, like, no. And he just starts beating the shit out of him. Like, when he gets him another Boston Crab, or like Kofi rolls into a pin, and then we get the bell lock. And then he just starts elbowing him in the ribs because he doesn't have it locked in all the way. And I'm like, fuck you, man.
Yeah, well,
that's
it all
part
leads
of a
up.
really wonderful segment.
Yeah.
Like a great sequence. And you're right, Paul. Once that label lock's locked in, it's more small things from Daniel Bryan that are telling the story. They are brutal elbows to the ribs, right? They're hard shots, and it's just a really, really great exchange back and forth. And the pace is picking up, and people are starting to really notice, like, oh, first of all, this is really good, and secondly, something's got to give soon.
Yeah, because we're getting to that point now where the fans are like going, okay, like I have a very vested interest in this match, and I'm either about to be really happy or really upset.
Right.
Dear God, they're picking the pace up. Like I've seen this match like a dozen times. I remember watching it live and going, that was amazing. That's probably my favorite match of the year. That's my 2019 match of the year, and nothing happened before or after that would change my mind on that opinion.
Right, that's because Firefly Funhouse didn't happen until the next year.
2020, exactly. So for me, like rewatching this for the show, and I told you both this the other night, this gets me every fucking time. I know what happens. It still gets me though.
Yeah, well, there's some really good moments here, right? So there's Kofi taking Daniel's kicks over and over and over, and it just builds to this really special moment where he's daring Bryan to hit me. Go ahead, bring it.
And they both start kicking each other.
And the crowd goes nuts.
It's just like kicks, elbows, forearms, headbutts. Kofi hits the reverse suplex. He gets up and holds him there and then drops him back for the reverse suplex. I'm
Love
like,
that.
when's the last time you saw the reverse suplex?
I couldn't tell you. It was just beautiful. And the
It
cheer.
gets a 2 count.
The cheer when Kofi kicks out of the running knee.
Oh, man.
Because you've seen it before. You've seen Daniel Bryan get to this point where he's got your number and he lines you up and he hits that knee, and he hit it. It wasn't like a light or he didn't get all of it. He got it, and Kofi kicks out.
Oh yeah, like that's it. And I'm like thinking, at this point, they've got me now. And then in a moment I thought was going to detract, but actually built it up even more. Whenever Eric Rowan tries to get involved, and then Xavier and Biggie beat the shit out of him, and then Kofi hits him with the TOP, and he gets hit at the midnight hour. I'm like, yeah, fuck you.
Yeah, no, I actually thought that added more to the match than detracted. And
you know what I like?
Typically, I would say otherwise. Typically, I would say
right. Well, you know what I liked about it is that it wasn't too much.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
Rowan wasn't constantly getting involved throughout the match. It wasn't like I'm thinking Sensational Sherry from Warrior Savage. You know what I mean? Where
it's just too much.
She's involved. It was its own little mini episode in the middle of the match to have them play their part in the story. But then the rest of the story played out Daniel versus Kofi.
What I really enjoyed is that after that happens, Kofi's on the outside with the rest of the New Day, and Daniel starts he's going to do a suicide dive, and then Kofi jumps up onto the rope to stop him. And I'm like, see, I got your number. I know your game plan. But that's when Kofi goes for the Trouble in Paradise, and that's when he misses, and he takes that running knee you mentioned, and he just somehow magically kicks out at 2.9 repeating. And like I said, at this point, and I'm watching this to take notes. I know what happens. I jumped out of my chair. I'm like, yes, come on. And then what I refer to as the Lion King moment, where Daniel just grabs both of Kofi's arms and just starts stomping on his head repeatedly. And I'm sitting there going Daniel, you had to retire for 4 years because of concussions. So to watch you do that, it's hard to watch.
Isn't it great? Isn't it like seeing Daniel Bryan make that full circle and go that far down the other ramp is really, really interesting.
Because the fact that wrestling is a show aside, in kayfabe, that is Daniel trying to end his career because he doesn't think he can beat him. And if Xavier is this B+ player and you can't beat him, what does that say about you, Daniel?
Wow.
And the fact that he has to do that, he has to sink that low.
And so one of the things that Daniel Bryan does is he maintains that wrist control, right? We talk about how important it is to do that whenever you're someone like Kazuchika Okada and you have a move that is absolutely dependent on that wrist control. And so Daniel Bryan.
What's that move called, Landon?
The Rainmaker.
Okay, just wanted to be sure.
Yeah. That's it. And anytime. But wrist control is so important for Daniel Bryan. But Kofi Kingston uses it against him. So Daniel Bryan is maintaining wrist control while Kofi starts beating down on him.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So because Bryan is not letting go of the wrist, he almost sets himself up for Kofi to return the favor with those vicious stomps to the head.
Well, we forgot to mention, like, we get the label lock for the third time, and like that's it. There's no after being stomped in the head, it's locked in. You can't do it, and then somehow Kofi just fights out of it. And you're right, he won't let go. And then Kofi starts stomping on Daniel's head, and like Daniel still like will not let go of his arm.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I love this. And then Kofi just fires up, hits the top, Trouble in Paradise, maybe, and he becomes the WWE champion. And that's got to be one of the most emotional moments in Mania history.
Well, you see all of the New Day members in the ring. They're all crying, and
Kofi is, as soon as the bell rings, Kofi is covering his face because he's crying. And then I love it because Big E and Xavier immediately storm the ring and cover him because they're both fucking crying too. I don't know if y'all aware of this, but there is a supercut of fan reactions of fans like losing their minds and crying. There's a video of like Booker T backstage where he starts crying. And then this other video with Shad Gaspard and MVP were at a bar watching it, and they both hug each other because they're both crying.
Wow.
And I'm like, and you realize just how important this moment is. It's such a big fucking deal. People can say what they want about, like, oh, yeah, it wasn't about race, but it really was, because the company is saying, you know what, on any given night, anybody can be the main draw. Anybody can be the champion. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, you can be champion.
And Paul, you know why? Because it was that moment, and you see it here in this moment, the crowd starts chanting, "You deserve it."
Yes, they do.
And I was fine until that happened, and then I just fucking lost it. Like,
well, let me tell you something. It is not a secret for anyone that knows me personally. I'm a bit of a crier. It's just a thing, specifically when I'm watching stuff. So I was already gone the moment Kofi hits the 3 count, right? Because Xavier gets in the ring and he's weeping and Big E is crying. But Byron, for as cheesy as he was throughout the whole match, and the commentary for as like as it was the whole time, Kofi's sons get into the ring and Byron says, "Dad did it."
Mm.
And I said, please pass the tissues because I can't handle it.
But you know
that's
what?
when we see the re-debut of the official WWE belt with Kofi's name on it. I'm like, yeah.
It's a great
there we
moment.
go.
It's a great moment. But you know what really makes me sad?
What's that?
Because playing in the background over all of this is like, really?
Yeah, but
you couldn't
can't
give
hear
him
that.
something a little bit better to celebrate his WWE I've never been a fan of the New Day theme, and it's just disappointing that.
But you can't hear the New Day theme because the crowd reaction is so loud.
I heard it.
And then my favorite moment in this, they bring the box in the ring, open it up, and it's the official Kofi Mania T-shirt with him with the belts, and they pick him up, and he's got his son, and stop it.
So my favorite thing,
so emotional.
My favorite thing about Kofi Kingston, after reliving this incredible story, is still that his wife's name is Chi-Chi.
I mean, he does have very Saiyan-like hair.
You know what's really interesting? And this is coming from an interview with Sports Illustrated in June of 2019. So it had been a month or two since Kofi had won the title. And Kofi, it says in this interview, he says, Bryan is the unsung hero. And he's done a lot for guys who are undersized, but showed they can still be cast in this top guy spot. He's done it so well for a very, very long time. And Bryan went through that identical journey I did to get to WrestleMania. He was badgered and blocked by the authority and called a B-plus player. That was his story, and it became mine too. We don't get a lot of shine in main events. We're not 6'8", 300 pounds. So the fact that he was my opponent was poetic. I have a lot of respect for Bryan and the boundaries he's been able to break. And Kofi continues to say about the match itself. He says, right from the beginning, I could feel the excitement the crowd had for that match.
Oh, yeah, they were.
Yeah, he says, then Daniel Bryan came to the ring. We met eyes, and he said, you don't deserve to be here. And that was the moment I knew that, yes, I do. And the last thing that Kofi says is, I was in complete disbelief when the ref's hand hit the mat for the third time. So many things have to line up for that moment to happen. If I don't meet Big E and Xavier, then I never get to this point. So I was hit with all those thoughts. When I got to the back, Vince was smiling. Tyler Breeze was there waiting for me. The Usos were there. There were so many people there waiting for me.
And, I mean, he deserves it. Every bit of it. And every minute of those 6 months that he had with that belt, he deserved. And I can't wait for round 2. I want to see it again.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I
I'm totally with
think,
you.
because we mentioned earlier how this whole storyline could have been a pretty good vehicle to turn either member of the New Day heel. I think if he wins it again, I think we might see because let's be honest, we know it's going to be Big E. Big E's going to turn.
Yeah.
I want to see Big E go, well, I helped you win that belt twice, and you never said thank you. So I'm just going to take it.
Please, fantasy booking. I would love that.
I would too, because
And
we
I
know.
want to see,
we
but
know
I
it's
want
going
it to be. I want it to be so well done that Xavier is torn. Right. I want Xavier Woods to be caught in the middle, and he's just like, I understand Big E's point, and I understand Kofi's point. Like, I want this.
It's like we sacrificed our careers to make sure you got that belt, and you didn't even give us. You didn't even say thank you.
We have
Even
willed
though
things
reality-
to happen. We have willed things to happen before.
So
And then I'm
after
calling it
this
right now.
episode- Go ahead, Paul.
I'm calling it right now. We get a monster heel Big E run, like he just roughshod everybody. Nobody can take him down, and then they build up a new star that finally beats Big E. I mean, I'm talking year.
What if that person
Give him a
is
year.
Ali?
Fuck it. Let's make it Ali. At this point, I don't even care. As long as we get a new star in there and they break even more new ground. I don't want the fucking 6'2", 250. Like I don't want that. I want a new star. I want an Ali, or I want somebody like that to come in, and they're the one that finally topples this evil son of a bitch that just like became this monster and just destroyed the entire roster for a year. That's what I want. Book it.
The potential's there.
guarantee you-
It's there. He can do it.
Yeah. Fuck. I don't care if it's what's the. God damn, I can't think of the kid's name right now, but they were pushing him a lot right before this whole lockdown started.
I'm trying to remember for you, bud.
We saw him when we were at SmackDown back in like August.
Buddy Murphy?
I like Buddy, but no, I don't want Buddy. I don't want Buddy. No, damn it, what's the kid's name?
Chad
He's
Gable.
been like, no, no. He's a Mexican wrestler.
Oh,
Humberto?
Humberto Carrillo.
Yes, we saw him wrestle, and I'm like, I don't know who this guy is. But after I watched him wrestle for 15 minutes, like, I don't know who you are, but I love you.
Yeah,
Because
he's
you're
great.
amazing.
He's doing good things on Raw.
I'm just saying, like, hell, give me him, give me Ali, I don't care. Give me one of these guys. Give me somebody new. I want to break ground. I don't want another big monster to wrestle him and they just to punch each other for 5 minutes or just do their finish moves, 4 times in a row. Yes, I am talking about you, Goldberg and Braun Strowman. Although I'm so happy that Braun finally got to win that belt. It's 3 years too late. But seriously, they each did one move 4 times.
Yeah, is very, very disappointing. But
Or
so back to
another example.
WrestleMania. Back to WrestleMania 35.
Whole match. I don't care if it's cheating. Whole match. Start to finish.
I'm
stand
gonna
by that.
say I know you do. I'm gonna say there was a sequence where Kofi goes for the Trouble in Paradise. but Daniel Bryan catches him and reverses into a Boston Crab, but then Kofi turns that into a small package, who then is reversed into a
Favorite moments.
and then it goes for the SOS, and it's reversed, and then there's a crossbody from the top, and then the bell lock. It's all too much. It happens very quickly, but just the reversal game back and forth between Kofi and Daniel, it's just really good wrestling.
I think I have that exact moment in my notes as we get a reversal sequence that lasts about 15 seconds, and I lost track, and that is one of the moments where I jumped out of my chair and was like, they got me. That's what I put in my notes. They got me.
I loved Kofi taking a beating from Daniel, but then getting to the point where he's just egging him on. It's just like, come on, bring it. There's nothing you can do that can stop me from winning the championship here tonight. And that moment was just huge for me because it was at that point where I was just like, okay, this is actually happening.
Yeah.
We are watching history write itself right now.
All right, guys. This is the point where it feels like, based off of how well I know the both of you and how I think that this ranking is going to go, I think in our fantasy booking situation, this is where Paul will play Kofi Kingston, Landon will play the evil Big E, and I will play Xavier Woods trying to figure out what's happening.
Well, this match is interesting in a lot of ways. I love it. It's so important. It's such an important moment that we talked about matches before that we didn't think were the best, but the moment was so important. This is a rare example where match is great and the moment is so important. This is like a game-changing moment after a great match. So it's really difficult to rank this one. And I'm not like just trying to kill time. I'm just saying I argued about this one for a while when I was talking about it. And as much as I love it, I don't know if I would put this one in the top like 15 or so, maybe in the 20s, because it's a difficult match to rate. Very, very difficult.
I would agree that it is super difficult, and it's even hard, trying to find where to begin.
It really is, because this is
ranking it.
This is very different from some of the stuff we've been doing as of late.
Yeah, and I think that it reminds me of Trish and Lita.
It really does.
In that way of like Trish and Lita isn't the best match you'll ever see, and this Daniel Bryan Kofi isn't the best match you'll ever see. I think it's very good, but I think it means there's more to it than just the match, right? So I'm kind of finding myself in the back half as well. I kind of naturally wanted to go next to Daniel Bryan Triple H and compare those two.
I would definitely put it above that.
It's an easy trap to fall into to compare the two Daniel Bryan matches. But you would put it above it?
I would definitely put it above Daniel Bryan Triple H. Because for me, like as great as that match was, that wasn't the big game-changing moment. The big game-changing moment was at the main event later on in the night, where this was the big game-changing moment that followed immediately. It was the match. So I would rank it higher than the WrestleMania 30 opener.
Landon, how do you feel about WrestleMania 30?
I think that's a really good starting point. I like the comparison to Trish Stratus and Lita, because when I think of game-changing matches that really broke a glass ceiling but weren't necessarily the best in-ring work that you'll see, like Trish Stratus versus Lita is currently ranked at number 17. And if you look at the matches that surround it, you're talking about some really great quality in-ring wrestling that you don't necessarily see in that match. But what that match does have is heart and inspiration for generations of wrestlers. And I feel like that is something that this match is going to be one like that one that's going to inspire a new wave of professional wrestlers.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So
100%.
I think it's a good place to start. And I think maybe somewhere between Daniel Bryan versus Triple H, because I think I agree with Paul. I think this one did more as far as for the wrestling business than a Daniel Bryan Triple H did. So I think somewhere I can at least narrow it down in a range between 17 and 24. I'm comfortable with that range.
That's a Yeah, that's a good range. Let's see. We don't really like to do our crawl, but let's do our crawl up from 17. So after that, at 18 is Kurt Angle versus Chris Benoit. And then after that, we've got Chris Jericho versus Shawn Michaels. We've got Kurt Angle versus The Undertaker, Marty Jones versus Rollerball Rocco, Edge versus Mick Foley, and Jushin Thunder Liger versus The Great Muta. This match is so different than everything else that I just said that this does not make it any easier.
Well, the really interesting thing is that all of those matches that you just named, most of them are very different from each other as well.
Oh, yeah. Like we're in that mid-range where you're getting all these crazy different match styles. It's like, oh, man, how do you compare these? Welcome to the podcast if you're listening for the first time. This is what we have to do after every episode, and it's only getting harder going from here. But if I'm going to look at that group of matches right there, I think the match it reminds me the most of all of those might be Jones and Rocco.
I was going to say the same thing.
I think I would put it right above Jones and Rocco. I put it at 21, above Jones and Rocco, and right behind Angle Undertaker. I think that's where I would put it.
Paul, that's exactly what I was about to say. I think this match does a lot of the things that Jones and Rocco set out to do. It's like the kind of story that they're trying to tell. I can definitely see some similar moments, and I think overall this one was a little bit more important, you could argue, and they didn't quite give me that, but they didn't quite give me the level of technical wrestling that you get from a Kurt Angle versus The Undertaker. So I'm comfortable with 21.
Yeah, I feel very good about 21 as well, and I'll tell you why. Because I think the match itself is very good. I don't think the match by itself is top 15, top 10 worthy or anything like that. But I think, and I just one more time I want to say it because I think it's so important, that visibility cannot be understated. Being able to see yourself as WWE champion or see yourself in whatever it is you want to be is such a huge deal. No matter where you come from, to be able to see yourself on the big screen, in the big moments, in the big game, whatever it is that you're into, I think is so important. And they were able to, like you said, Landon, this is going to be a match that a whole new generation of wrestlers are going to look back to and say, that's the guy that I saw win the WWE Championship. That's why I wanted to be a wrestler, because after he did it, I knew I could do it too.
Yeah.
And I think it's similarly to how we said Trish and Lita, broke that ceiling. Like I think that's why this match is so important. And so that's why I think it deserves a spot on the list to begin with. And I'm comfortable with it at 21.
I couldn't agree more.
Oh, yeah.
And there you have
there
it.
With you.
There you have it. 38 episodes in to Last Match Standing. And we have our currently 21st ranked match on the list. Daniel Bryan, Kofi Kingston, Kofi Mania 35. And with that, we only have one more episode before our season 2 finale.
Well, so in season 1, we had 20 matches, and then we had an actual season finale separate from the 20th match. And in the true season finale, we break down the whole list, right? And we talk about, we're gonna send out a poll to have all of our listeners rank what their top at this point at the end of season 2, it'll be a top 40. And see what their list looks like based on the matches that we've done. So our season finale will actually be 3 episodes from now.
Yeah, that's fair. We'll have episode 39,
fair enough.
match 39, match 40, and then the season finale where we break it all down. You're absolutely right. And I am super excited for that season finale for a couple of reasons. One of them is because I cannot wait to see how everyone else, how the listeners, how anybody else would rank these 40 matches in comparison to us. But also, I'm super excited to do our season 2 review where I get to tell you just how many referees we've had.
Well, I know Red Shoes was in 3 of the matches we did.
I'm excited. And, thanks to everyone who has followed along from us for as long as you have. If there's anyone who's been listening from episode 1, thank you. Thank you sincerely. This has been a wild ride for us. And just to think about how there are only 2 episodes left before we make it to the season 2 finale, it's just kind of strange to think about.
Yeah. Not only that, but we are closing in on our first year, gentlemen.
We are.
And man, it's been a good time.
It has. It really has. We met some really incredible people. We've gotten some really great support from the wrestling community out there through Patreon. If you are not a patron, please consider becoming a part of the family. Their Discord, family that people are able to talk to each other during pay-per-views, and now we opened it up to where we talk to each other all the time. Because we really are a last match family. And there's some really, really fun things going on over at our Patreon. The tiers are extremely low. There's a $1 tier, a $3 tier, and a $5 tier. All more content the more you go up. Last Mania Standing is going strong. We finished up recording WrestleMania 8 episode last week, so that's going to be coming out very soon. And we'll be recording WrestleMania 9 very soon. We're all
the
excited
excitement
for
in our voices.
Oh, yay, Caesar's Palace.
Wait, I'm pretty sure the tagline, hold on, I'm pretty sure the tagline for WrestleMania 9 is the biggest, let me see, I have it right here. The biggest stars come to Las Vegas. The biggest stars in the world are coming to Las Vegas. And boy, they were not really right about that. But we're excited to review it. It's going to be a hot mess, and I can't wait.
Hot mess is probably the nicest way to describe that show.
I think you guys may be pleasantly surprised. I don't remember this show being quite as bad as people say. So we'll see. We'll see.
I will say it wasn't as bad as I thought. But, oh dear, there are 3 moments during that show where I'm like, that's why people say this is the worst one of all time.
And if you want to find out what those 3 moments are,
that's right. You can join us on Patreon at Last Mania Standing. That's part of our $5 tier. If you are a Slammy Award winner, which is fantastic, you would have done it by yourself, which is even the best part. But we only have a couple more matches left in this season, and let me tell you something, guys. They are going to be awesome. Some stuff that we've been really wanting to do since the very beginning. So we're super excited to do these next couple matches for you as well.
Oh, yeah, our season finale is one that I have been looking forward to do. And if you haven't caught on, our season finales and season openers are all sort of the ones that you were thinking of when you thought of 100 greatest matches of all time. So I promise you won't be disappointed.
Oh, you definitely won't. We've got a very big special surprise everyone planned.
Until then, I'm Spencer.
I'm Paul.
I'm Landon.
And this
is Last
Match
Standing.
Standing.
All right, good job, guys.